Oh, okay.
One more time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One more time. Welcome to Court Reporter Confidential.
A place to talk about all things court reporting, including industry news, technology, best practices, and personal experiences from professionals in the field.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Court Reporter Confidential. I'm your co-host, Isaiah Leslie. We're switching it up this week. We're going to have somebody on the show today who's vitally important to the court reporting profession. We're opening up a little bit to talk about some of the support people, the supporting cast that's very important for us, not only in capturing the record, but also for some of the things that might happen in trial. It's somebody we've worked with personally in our agency, and I'm happy to this morning to introduce Robert Velasco.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And definitely an honor to be in this episode. I've seen a couple of them on and it's
cool.
very informative. And, you get a little mix of the personal side of a court reporter, and definitely looking to, share anything that might be helpful to the reporters that are watching this, and then also some of the other videographers for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Yeah, we'd love to talk a little bit more about sort of your journey as a videographer personally, and then getting into how you started Visual Discovery, some of the background about who you are.
So during this time where I was a student, part of the jobs that I had, because of the lack of experience as an 18-year-old,
Sure.
I just could get service jobs, kind of entry-level stuff. So most of those jobs had me work the weekends. And from there, that's I was like, you know what? I just kind of need to find a job that maybe I can have my weekends for free. So a friend of mine who was a good friend of a friend, in conversations, he's like, hey, they're hiring where I work. And I was like, oh, really? Where's that? He's like, I work at a court reporting company. And I was like, okay. I didn't know what that
right?
was.
Yeah.
So I work in the billing department, and I'm a court reporting student, and I think they're hiring right now. I was like, oh, can you connect me with somebody?
Sure.
So I went to the interview. Long story short, I was actually interviewing without knowing to be the executive assistant to the owner of that agency.
No way.
So obviously I didn't have any credentials for
Right.
it, no qualifications. So the interview was literally 10, 15 minutes from the owner's side.
Right.
So I started talking a little more with the office manager, and she said, hey, I know that Laura recommended you. She speaks very highly of you, and we really like just how you presented yourself. I showed up in a suit and everything,
Nice. Yeah.
And she's like, we'd like to offer you, employment, but in our production department. I was like, do I have to work weekends? She's like, no, it's Monday through Friday, and
Yeah.
the schedule's very flexible. Talk to our production manager, and they can set up what the hours you're available outside of school. That's how I started working at that court reporting company.
Wow.
And I tell people, what at that time, I told people, where do you work? At a court reporting company. They're like, at a what?
Yeah.
So people didn't know,
It's a very niche
what
industry.
it is.
Yeah.
And I was like, think of it as a kind of a glorified Kinko's. I mentioned Kinko's now.
Yeah.
And people were like, what's Kinko's? And I was like, FedEx office, UPS store. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's so funny you say that. I do the same thing. Like I will, even today, like people come to the office, I'm like, and so we have half of that business is a FedEx Kinko's, and they're like, what's Kinko's?
Yeah.
We're too old, dude.
Yeah, I know. So,
Yeah.
but during school,
Right.
Kinko's was my go-to place to make copies
Me
and
too.
kind of just succeed in making my things happen. Right, that was it. That was the place
Totally.
you went.
Yeah.
So once I started working at that court reporting company, I had my own like little personal FedEx Kinko's, or
Right. Right.
to kind of do different things. So, but that's where I learned a lot. I learned a lot about who a court reporter was, what exhibits were, rushes. So I was a person that would clean the conference room. I think this office had about 10 to 15 conference rooms.
Yeah.
Some of them were like for 20, 30 people, in construction defect litigation.
Yes, yeah.
All the attorneys. I'm talking about 1999.
Right.
2000.
It was the height of that
period.
time, yeah.
So it was just lunches, like they had a full-on kitchen in
Yeah.
this court reporting company to serve all the attorneys. So I was production, delivery. So there was like a service that if an attorney needed the transcript right away, we'd just either walk in or take a car to go deliver that transcript like in person,
Yeah.
with a delivery slip, anywhere that it was needed. So I was delivery, production, binding transcripts, unbinding them if something had to be redone. And then part of the other stuff that I did there was just basic cleaning up, tidying up the place. So that really helped me in what was next as a videographer, because all those little, if I would have just been like, you have knowledge of audio and video, step into the deposition scene.
Right.
I would have been set up I would have been set up a little bit less to succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. I get that, because you understand the nuances, all the little context and the cues, having done the inside, sort of the back end of the housework. Then when you come in as an outside videographer, you don't really understand maybe all the little things that go on inside of a court reporter's office, or just a depot conference room, right?
Yeah. I would walk down, and I knew it was a very important setting. I knew sometimes there was like, hey, there's a San Diego Padres player in room B. It's like, oh wow, and or some business person that you would see on TV, right? So some of the more famous depots that were happening there, and so definitely from that perspective, just being in the environment of the agency, and always saying yes to whatever was needed. For me, that was key in just being a person that absorbed and just learned from my surroundings. And it lined up great with what I was doing at the time for school, because like I said, I was able to do my school 100% and then work whatever hours I needed and kind of make a full week of my schedule. And so I'm really thankful for that opportunity, and super thankful to that friend at the time that connected me. Otherwise, I was working, just random service jobs, and which were awesome for what I needed. But little did I know I was going to get catapulted into my career without knowing. So super thankful to Laura for connecting me, and so thankful that I ended up marrying her.
Wow, that's great,
a
man.
few years after we were just friends, and we started working together.
Yeah.
And she worked, her own in the billing department, court reporting student. And so definitely at that point, we became really good friends. Ended up getting married in 2002. We have 2 beautiful kids, and now we've been married almost 24 years.
That's great, man. I love stories like that. Wow, yeah. So it was great for everything for your future spouse, your future career. Yeah, that's great, man. I love that story. Does she work with you in the business too?
So unfortunately, the kind of her career course there was a school in San Diego, Court Reporting Institute, CRI. I think they were based out of Seattle at the time, but they ended up going bankrupt. So it kind of set her back. But she actually was in high speed at the time.
Okay.
And then she tried going to a couple online schools, but online wasn't really as good back then. Even we're talking about the 2000s, mid 2000s. So it wasn't like now where a lot of business gets done remotely.
Right.
And then Sage College opened up in San Diego. She tried that as well, but I think there was and it's tough. Corey, just to be able to be certified in California.
Yeah.
And I saw her struggles and her practices at home.
Yeah.
And so definitely there came a point where she had to kind of make a decision as to where her path was going to lead her. And I say, hey, there's no wrong decision. We're here in it together. And eventually she stayed together. We stayed working together for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And then when I departed my position there, she stayed on board. And then there were some changes just through acquisitions at that company.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, hey, you want to learn what I do? And so she ended up learning the video side prior to Zoom. This is like 2010, 2011 time frame. It's the hardest thing to train a family member. Let me just tell you that. The patience that you show and the patience that you have with a stranger, definitely, I don't know. And it's with my kids too.
Yeah.
Right? You try to show something, and I have to work on that. And I think, but just as a family, like working with family, it's just so tough. So I commend you and your wife.
Thank you.
Definitely, I know there's probably struggles and things that happen, but it definitely, you work as a team. If you do that, you won't fail.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I could never become a court reporter. And well, it's certainly if Stephanie tried to train me, we would both end up being frustrated with each other, I think for sure. But you're right. I mean, we try to stay out of each other's way, like we have lanes that we operate in this business. We talk shop all the time because you can't not, but I think what helps is my office is in the office and her office is out of the house, right? So we work in different spots. And then what's funny is sometimes people will approach us and they'll try to maneuver around us, like, oh, I got roadblock with Stephanie, and then they'll approach me and it's like, you don't understand, man. We're on the same team. Like, whatever, I back my wife on this. Like, there's no end arounds to get what you want out of this, you know. And that sometimes happens with vendors or with actually mostly with clients. Like, they'll call somebody, they'll call Steph or try to talk to her about it and get nowhere, and then they'll think they'll talk to me and get a different answer. I'm like, we're on the same team, man.
No, it definitely. And with me and her, we worked in different areas of what we did. So while I worked at the agency she started a year before I did there. So I worked there till right at the end of 2011.
Yeah.
The acquisition of that company had already happened. So I had two choices at the time. I had moved my way up to being a regional manager for the video side of the business. There was a couple of options for us as a family, and we talked about them. And I said, look, the next stage for me to grow is not going to be here in San Diego. It's going to be either relocate to the corporate offices in Atlanta. That's where the next stage is. Are you ready for something like that? Right. And
Right.
at the time, we had just had our son a year before, not even a year, maybe like 9 months before that. And I said, look, whatever needs to happen. FaceTime didn't exist.
Right.
Zoom didn't really kind of exist. So I think if we were in today's world, I might have been like, we can jump on a face call with grandma. Yeah.
Right.
But I think back then it was a little tougher to make that decision.
Sure.
And we decided to stay, where our family is between Tijuana and San Diego.
Right.
And we stayed local, and that's where I made a decision to let them know, let the company know, because I was really thankful for everything I'd learned. And I said, look, whatever time you all need, I'm here. But eventually I'm not moving to another location, right? It's just not the right fit for me at this moment.
Sure.
Super understanding.
Oh,
they
that's
were
cool.
very thankful on their end too.
Yeah.
And at the mutual understanding at the end was, can you finish off the year? So I gave them actually 6 months.
That's a good man.
Yeah. I said, I'll give you, the beginning of the year, I'll start fresh. We can transition to make sure that everything gets handled correctly. Because at that point, I had been in charge of their multiple acquisitions. So when a company was acquired by Esquire, at that point, it came to me and our team to come in, look at everything that company was doing, all their archives, where their depots, equipment, logging it, entering into the different system, and make sure that while we're doing all this acquisition, the operational success of both companies worked and eventually came together to just be one.
That's great. That's not an easy thing to do.
No.
You're mixing company cultures, different processes, different systems. You've got to keep, from the day of the transition, you've got to have the same quality. And we've learned that. We've done 2 acquisitions ourselves, and we're about to acquire 2 more companies. And it's the same deal. Like, my team internally is prepped and ready, because you've got, and there's all the unknown things too, right? There's always things that come up that you're not expecting. So
Definitely.
But that must have prepared you for your own company then, right?
Definitely. It was something that I think, without knowing, it worked out, because Victor was already doing visual discovery. He started out as an independent solo videographer. Through his great work, responsible. If you gave him a 4 o'clock depot in Brawley and you reserved him for that day, even if there was 3 companies saying, Victor, I need your help in San Diego, all day depot tomorrow. He's like, sorry, I have a depot already.
Yeah.
And so his way of handling his core business, even me, when he was a vendor to Esquire, right, I respected him a lot for that, right? And I could tell that it was a family business, it was him out there shooting the depots, and then eventually I saw his wife shooting depots. I saw Cynthia shooting depositions, and I was like, Victor, he's like, yeah, you know what? I kind of stopped working where I was working before, and we're going to push this forward together.
I love it.
And then I just little by little, he started growing this out of San Diego, out of Los Angeles. And but I didn't know all this. I knew this once I worked with him.
I see.
Yeah,
So
I just saw him as a videographer.
Got it.
That was it. So remember I told you that I gave my a 6 months kind of like phase out period?
Yeah.
Well, in that summer is when he came to me, and he said, Robert, I have a question for you. He's like, and I knew this after we made a decision to start working together. He said, I asked in San Diego, hey, if I'm looking for someone that can help me in the next stage of this is too much for me, who can I go to? And somebody at another agency told him, go to the guys that work at Paulson/Esquire. Go to them. They have a department. They have like 40, 60 people that work in the video department alone.
Wow.
And Victor's like, really? And he's like, oh, I know Robert at Paulson's or Esquire, right? So he had a lunch meeting with me in the summer. And that's when he said, hey, I have this good problem.
Right.
I'm kind of at a point where I need help. This is too much for me to carry by myself. And you've been highly recommended that it's something that you can help me with. Would you be interested? And it's funny that it lined up within a month before that is when I found out that for me to keep my role meant moving to Atlanta.
Right.
So I was like, talk about signs, right?
Totally.
And
wow.
I said, hey, Vic, and I said, let's. I'd be more than happy to work with you, and let's get going on this, right? But then I came back to him, and I didn't know if he was going to be okay with waiting till the beginning of the year. He's like, no, man. And this was all a conversation in Spanglish, okay? Because funny thing is, he was also born in Tijuana.
Okay.
All right. So we grew apart. We grew and were raised in an area maybe about 10, 15 minutes apart from each other without knowing each other.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. A little bit different. I think he grew up a little bit. He grew up in National City, but I mean, it's a small place. San Diego, Tijuana. It's like they call it Chula Vista. They call it Chulawana.
Chulawana.
Right. Just because how close and interact. It interacts with each other.
Well, I remember
both communities.
Cheech Marin used to have this bit in his stand-up. He'd say, "I'm from the old country, San Diego." Which is kind of like plays into that.
Yeah, definitely. So at the time, I was like, I don't know if he's going to wait for me to work with him. And he said, no, man, I think this is everything that I'm hearing, everything that I've heard, and what you're telling me. He's like, let's do it. January 1st, 2012. That's when I started working with him and just helped him organize, helped him.
You're on the operational side, like you get it, like how to scale, how to build this thing up, right?
Yeah. I took the great things that he had built already.
Yeah.
It's funny. I showed up and, typical me, I was, funny story going back to when I first learned everything. So during my time at San Diego State, I was taking a public speaking course. And as a kid, it's always intrigued me to be in front of people and kind of have a conversation. And growing up, it was part of my identity, I could tell already. So naturally, kind of majored in communications. And my goal was eventually to be either some kind of role of public speaking. And so I was a communications major with a minor in political science. Go figure why I picked those two, right?
Right.
But I was, at that time, in a public speaking class. So first depo that I'm in, I'm brand new to this. I'm kind of, everything's so nerve-wracking. I'm in front of like 7 to 12 attorneys in a conference room table. The person that's showing me what to do is next to me. I'm in front of my big old gearbox. I can't even see the group. It's just so much equipment in front of me. Got to remember, I started doing this when VHS.
Right, there was still analog going on.
Yes,
right,
VHS master on a camera this ginormous.
Old school, man.
VHS backup. So I actually, sitting down, he's okay, they're ready to go on the record. Go ahead. I've been practicing this read on like all night. I practically have memorized it. Well, I kind of get up and I kind of just grab my microphone and I start speaking to them like if I'm in front of like a podium. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? Sit down.
Like Toastmasters or something. Yeah.
Sit down. What are you doing? And I was like, what? Like, he's like, my intuitive nature just kind of kicked in.
Right.
And even the attorney was like, what's this guy standing up for in front of us,
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're all gathered here today.
Right.
Yeah. But just a funny story about, that. It just, that was my first exposure to depos. And I picked it up really quickly. It was something that came natural to me just because of the equipment. The equipment side I had fumbled around with. I grew up in the era of watching a lot of MTV videos.
Yeah.
Right? And then post that, my brother and I, the MTV Jackass era.
Okay.
Right? And handle the camera and let's see what crazy things you can get into.
Like jankiness.
So, growing up in Tijuana, right, we would still go back and forth, and we'd go to the beach and things. You can get away with a lot more.
I bet
things in
down
Mexico, right? Fireworks and things like that,
right.
and so we'd try some crazy stunts. So video was always something that I was exposed to, never professionally,
right?
So it came natural to me. The customer service side from the production time, helping out with Laura about who core report. She was there practicing at night, trying to pass her high speed test, right, and make it to the state exam. So it all came together very naturally. So from that, I picked it up with Victor, and we definitely hit the ground running in 2012. and I helped him just get organized, develop a really, really strong sense and identity with what we had built, or he had built already.
Right.
And it paired it up to like kind of just more on the corporate side where I was kind of accustomed to.
Yeah.
So I showed up to my first day with him, and I show up in a suit. I mean, not a suit, kind of slacks and a tie and a shirt. And I show up to their office, and it's him, his wife, and his sister.
Right.
In a small little locale in Chula Vista, and he's in shorts and casual, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm sorry, man. This is what I wear to work every day. He's all, okay. And his wife was like, see, Victor, this is how I want you to dress, and this is, and he's like, what? He's like, I'm not working today. I'm at the office.
Right.
I want to be comfortable. And I was like, I've been looking for that for 10 years. I'm tired of wearing slacks, So
Nice.
it was a good mix of like that small company, family feel.
Yeah.
And just kind of growing together and kind of merging the kind of a corporate, more organized with that family or small business.
You got that blend, and then you've got that distinct flavor of being from Tijuana, and then you've got that San Diego vibe, which is a cool vibe in and of itself. Like, I don't know how well you would have done it in Atlanta, man. In hot Atlanta, if you'd gone out there with the San Diego vibe and the weather, that would have been tough.
I still have a lot of good friends at Esquire that have moved on to really, really big leadership positions within their organization. So definitely, I never, you never have regrets about what the decisions you go. I mean,
you would have been successful over there too.
I think so. I think that just with the drive that I've had, and I think that the success that I've had now is attributed. I was just with my grandma yesterday, and she's been a little ill. I mean, she's 94.
Yeah.
Right, and we thought we were going to lose her earlier this week, but I thanked her yesterday.
Yeah.
Just for the sacrifices that each generation has made.
Yeah.
To allow us to be here.
Yeah.
And so that to me, I'm very, very, very thankful for that.
Right.
So I think as a person that drives you, regardless of where in the world you're from, when you have an opportunity, that's a driving force to be successful.
And now you've got a chance to pay it forward to your son, or you have two kids, right?
Two kids, 11 and a 14-year-old.
There you go, man.
It drive me crazy, but in a good way.
I got a 16 and a 13-year-old, so we're about the same boat there. Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit now. You talked a little bit about the relationship of the videographer to court reporter, but tell me, again, I think our audience is fairly familiar with legal videography, but for people who aren't as familiar, explain your role in a deposition and how and what that does for the record. Yeah.
One of the great things that I always pride myself in teaching a new videographer is the environment that we're in, the sensitivity of the proceeding, right? But I always tell them, look, we're a neutral party, right? Even though we're hired by court reporting company who was hired by the plaintiffs, right? Once we show up on site, we have to play a neutral role. I've shown up to depots where I've been told, I want you to set up this way or that way, or I want you to, the deposition's canceled. I don't just leave. I want to make sure, like, hey, I've been in situations where maybe that's their tactic. Mm-hmm. So I always have that in mind from just working with attorneys, right? And one of the things that I always teach is we're a neutral party, right? If somebody tells you, turn off the camera, we're going off the record, you have to make sure that both sides agree, right, to go off the record. If one attorney is asking questions, telling you to zoom into the attorney, right? No, it's like the protocol is that we record the witness. The witness, right? We have to have good lighting. We want to make sure that the person's facing the camera. We want to make sure that we catch the oath in the camera view while they're being sworn in. Right. Making sure that we have a backup recording on top of the camera recording. It's a live event. There's no going back to saying, I'm sorry, let's, cut.
Take it back from the
start.
Take it back,
pick it up from the top. No. This is a live event. I use a comparison of a wedding videographer, right? Because a lot of our technicians that work out on the field, they have different backgrounds, and a lot of them have done some type of live event. I said, think of a wedding, right? If you're recording the vows, you don't go, oh, I'm sorry, can we do the vows over again? Right. I missed that part. No, it's never really that intense to us, but it's just the nature of the responsibility we carry to make sure that we follow not only the protocols and the procedures from a legal standpoint. So, for instance, a lot of times I tell people, are you a notary? And they're like, no, why? I've never known why, right? Oh, well, look, here's Code of Civil Procedure, a certain section. If this is the deposition for trial testimony, it says here in the code that you have to be a person that's is able to administer an oath,
Right.
in order to accomplish that, is becoming a notary, and that's for California.
Right.
So, and that's for testimony for treating physicians or an expert witness. Right. Through the pandemic, there's been some adjustments. I know that there was a few, just because of the nature of not being able to be in front next to the witness.
Right.
So there's been some adjustments to some of these procedures, right? But in general, we always want to be able to be that neutral party that follows these state guidelines and even some procedures that maybe they're not laws, but they're things that are put in place by agencies.
They're good, like a code of ethics. Right?
Ethics from like the NCRA,
right? Or
definitely, I always go to the guides to make sure that we're training our videographers and we're doing everything according to what is going to be the best outcome for the video product, and we're following all those rules.
Right, and that's a great point too. And I know the state has their own, the DRA, the CCRA. They have these the code of ethics that we try to follow. Reporters do, because they're in the same boat. Whoever's there capturing the record, it has to be a neutral third party, because it's so easy then to have conflicts of interest. Mm-hmm. So to explain a little bit about why it's then in that context, it's so important to have a neutral third party recording it, as opposed to say, oh, I'm just going to bring my camera, I'll record it myself, one of the parties, let's say.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that's super important, super important point is at the time you want to go to trial, you can record it. No one's going to stop you from recording it yourself.
Sure.
But if you ever want to have that admitted into court, then that's where it's key that it was recorded by a channel that is recognized by the court, right? And not just someone that recorded, because if you are financially interested in the case, if you're an employee of the law firm, then you're financially interested in the outcome.
That's right.
So at that point, it just becomes something where the other side can object to it.
Right.
And if it's super important testimony or a really key piece that was recorded on video, do you really want to expose yourself to it being not admissible?
Right. It's a great point. And this is an established channel. There's precedent to use legal videographers for that method in the courts. They're automatically, I won't say automatically admissible because it's not part of the code, but there's an acceptance of it from the judges and everybody else. And it would be easy for another party to object to, where did this video come from? How do I know that it's not been edited, et cetera? So, and then there's all the other elements you talked about in terms of competency of capturing the witness and capturing the oath and making sure the lighting is right. And I know people today think, well, I've got an iPhone, it's got a great capturing method, I'll just use my iPhone. Well, that's great, but there's more to it than that. You know, everybody thinks they're an amateur cinematographer or director, but there's still an element of expertise to this.
Yeah, we got a request yesterday, and mentioning about technology in our pockets, right? The iPhone or Samsung phones, they have cameras that are really, really good.
Right.
And there was a request for taking pictures and images of tiny objects, and for, as a site inspection, maybe they're breaking something apart, right? And one of our technicians they have a mirrorless camera, and I asked him, do you have a macro lens? He's like, no, I've never had the need for a macro lens. But he's like, but my iPhone does really good pictures too. It has, it's able to zoom in. I was like, no, can you imagine like showing up to a site inspection with a camera, but then when it's time to take the macro pictures, you bust out your iPhone?
Right.
You
try to zoom in.
Sometimes it's kind of how it's seen as opposed to what can be done. I've thought of pulling out a backup to record on my iPad if something were to go wrong with my primary camera. Like, you have to adapt in depots to be able to seamlessly make sure that the proceeding keeps going forward within the parameters of making sure you have a master and a backup.
Right.
And so, it's definitely, I'll tell you just a funny story on some of the international work, because that's where my focus has been primarily over the last 10, 15 years.
Interesting.
10 years?
Yeah.
It's been the international work. One time I went to a deposition in north of Helsinki, Finland.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we were there for a deposition where Nokia is based out of. So back then, this is before I can Google what type of adapter I need there, and
right, with the electronic, the
yeah,
plugins, and
or
everything.
Amazon, right, to solve my Australia
Right.
Adapter, and then a bunch of things come up. So I went to Radio Shack again. Dating my age, right?
Nice.
Radio Shack.
Loved
I said,
Radio Shack back in the day.
I know. It solved a lot of
It
problems.
did. Yeah,
for
it was
us.
great.
And they were everywhere.
Yeah, they
You know,
were.
you
Yeah,
could
every
just-
city had a couple. Yeah.
So I went to Radio Shack and said, hey, I'm traveling to this part of the world and I need to be able to plug in the plug over there. And the guy was like, let me check. Where are you going? Where's Tampere, Finland? I was like, it's somewhere up there. I was like,
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, we have two. He's like, one's 50 watts and one's 2,000. Give me the 2,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, little did I know it's the watts that it brings down to, right? So the other one was, the 2,000 was in case you have a hair dryer, things like that with the US plug. So I show up, I travel the world. And I went over there and a little plane at the end. We landed, and don't speak English. The taxi driver doesn't speak English. Takes me to my hotel. So the rule for all international work is once you get to site, you plug in all your equipment.
Okay,
You
right.
test everything,
Yep,
because you don't know if this thing's under the plane or some of the stuff you carry on, it got jammed around. Make sure you test. You do an audio test the night before in the room. So as I'm doing this at the Ramada, I still remember, I plug in everything, and then I was like, okay. I plug in this adapter, and I put it into the outlet of the room. All of a sudden, I hear the loudest pop I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Lights go off.
Oh, no.
Smoke starts coming out of my equipment.
No.
It's like a SKB gearbox, right? And it's just smoke coming out. And I'm looking around. There's no light. I open my door to the hallway, and there's a bunch of guests in the hallway wondering what's going on.
Oh, no.
I wiped out the electricity to the whole floor.
No way.
I go back in the room, and in Spanish, we have a saying, trágame tierra. I'm like, which is like you crouch and you just kind of go into the fetal position, and you're like, what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like my equipment, it's smoke's coming out of it. What am I going to do? This is before email on the fly, right? Phones
Right,
and all that. I was
right.
like, what do I do? Who do I call? So I go downstairs and I was like, excuse me, I need a Radio Shack. I don't know where I was just
Yeah.
talking to somebody that didn't understand me at all.
Right.
I ended up, how do I adapt? Going back to that.
Right.
These attorneys flew me to the other side of the world.
Right.
And now I'm in this situation. How do I solve this situation so that tomorrow morning I can go into that depot room and still not make the attorney aware that I'm having all these problems?
Right.
So I think that's key to a videographer. And this is an extreme example.
Sure.
But these things happen every day at depositions. And
Right.
court reporters too. I've
100%.
helped them kind of troubleshoot their computer
Yeah.
software. It's not connecting to real time.
Right.
Just little things. Something little, I always tell videographers, when you set up your equipment, set up an outlet for the reporter. Let them know that the audio plug is there for them. Like just little things that we work at as a team, right?
Right.
But everybody in this industry troubleshoots on the fly to make sure the attorneys don't see all the behind the scenes stuff.
That's right.
All right. So on this specific depot that I was kind of in a very, very bad spot, my 2/3, if not a little more, of my equipment was fried. It was gone. It had just the voltage had just shot it.
Yeah.
So I said, how can I make this happen? So I started, okay, my camera still works. So I ended up setting up the depot. Everything was fine. I took my gearbox, everything. But the only thing that was working was my camera.
Wow. Okay.
And I plugged in 2 microphones into the XLR inputs.
Okay, yep.
And I still ran all 6 microphones that I had.
So people thought that.
Because I didn't want them
right.
to worry.
Right, right.
But thankfully, in that depot, I put 1 microphone on the table, and then I had a splitter, and then I put 2 of the other microphones to the questioning attorney and the witness, or maybe it was the interpreter that was there. I think the person, I couldn't remember if they spoke English or not, but if not, I mic'd up the interpreter, and the depot went. And I was so nervous. I was like that guy in Airplane,
Yeah.
like that. And again,
Another reference people won't
I'm
get
sorry,
today.
yeah.
I get it though. Good one. Good reference.
that was me the whole day, right?
Yeah,
whole 2 days. I think it was 2 days of depot, and because the mini DV cassettes were the only thing that I really had because my backup was shot. I guarded those like my life depended on it anywhere. Because I went on I was like, should I even go? I think I stopped in Copenhagen, and I
Okay.
can maybe spend a couple of days there on the way back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't want to leave the hotel because I was like, if these are valuable, if I don't have these with me when I get back, so I put them in the safe, in the room's safe, but safeguarded those things because I didn't have like a backup like I normally would.
Right.
But again, going back to making sure I got back to to San Diego, converted those, digitized them, and everything was fine.
Good.
Right?
Good.
But
Man, wow, what a
yeah,
story.
it's definitely working on the fly, fixing problems on the fly, so that our clients and the attorneys definitely at the end of the day just have a depot that they sat, did their job,
Right.
and they don't even know kind of the half of the stuff. And I'm sure
Yeah.
maybe in your calendar department, maybe they're here sometimes till 7, 8, 9 p.m. trying to make sure they get a reporter or
That's right.
they get whatever the task is, right?
Yep.
And we've been there, right? Where we're working late or
Yeah.
early, somebody calls out,
Yeah.
somebody has a emergency, and we adapt. And at the end of the day, all we're looking to provide is that the attorney walks in, we're ready to go when they are.
It is the craziest thing about our industry is that everything needs to look and act perfectly, right? All the time.
Yeah.
If we make one mistake, and there's no grace for that, right? Everybody, you've got to be perfect. And so, yeah, there's all this chaos behind the scenes that's happening sometimes, late minute scheduling, canceling, all that kind of stuff. But when we're doing our job the right way, people don't even notice we're there,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're not there. So,
And that's
yeah.
a good thing. I think
Yeah.
that's part of our training is like, I need to find a new analogy, but I said, sometimes we're like a fly on the wall. And I'm
Exactly.
like, I just don't
Yeah.
like being a
Yeah.
fly. Right. But definitely it's we're there to provide a service. And if we're not noticed, I think that's a good sign,
Right.
That we're not definitely involved. We're part of the proceeding. We're not in the proceeding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be part of the proceeding. That's
Yeah.
right. That's great. And I love that story. And it kind of highlights some of the things you talked about just in terms of how you support the reporter. So maybe talk a little bit more about that. Like what is the hand in glove relationship?
Oh, we're a team.
Yeah.
Right. Court reporter, interpreter, videographer, even the location, right, where it's being held. I make sure that there's water. If there's coffee, that I maybe put some water bottles on the table.
Yeah.
Right. So when the attorneys get there, they just a little extra stuff. But and in part, that I think it sets the tone. If the reporter walks in, I stand up, introduce myself, let them know what part. Most of these reporters they've been in that room maybe 10 times,
Right.
and they see where we're set up. But if it's a hotel room kind of thing where it's kind of different, just make sure where the court reporter is going to sit. I always go try to find that chair with no arms. Right?
Good man. You're a good man. Reporters love that.
Yeah, and just make just the little details
Yeah.
that there's an audio plug for them to listen. Make sure that audio jack for them to put on headphones has a control, so that if they need me to turn it up, I can turn it up.
Yeah.
Rather than a feed where it's just a static volume where it can't be changed.
Right.
Because their ears might be a little different than mine and what I'm recording.
Right.
All right. So having an audio there for them. Having a plug there for them and the devices, even if
Right.
if the table has plugs, maybe they don't want a bunch of cables coming out the middle of the tables. I always make sure I put something there for them. And then during the first 10-15 minutes of the depot, I'm having always eye contact with the reporter.
Okay.
Because that's when the adjustments are happening. People move. People kind of do this when the
Right,
read-on's going, right?
Right.
And then I kind of tell the witness to move this way or move that way.
Yeah.
Make sure there's no visual interference between my camera and where the reporter can see the questioning attorney.
Yeah.
Those are all just little details that go into making a very team and team focused kind of day at the job with the reporter.
Right.
Just through my experience in just being in this a long time, I even go sometimes to just see if they need anything because they're working. When we're off the record and we kind of just take
Right.
time to stretch and
Right.
look out the nice views we
Right.
get sometimes, I know that they're maybe working on
Editing,
proofreading
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
proofreading something, getting something turned in from yesterday,
Yep.
right? And then I always want to make sure, like, do you need anything? Can I get you some water?
Right.
Or hey, I'm gonna go downstairs to get, we're on a lunch break. I'm gonna stay here. I was like, do you need lunch?
You make a lot of friends that way.
Yeah.
Mike.
Do you need me to bring
Yeah.
you something back? And they're like, oh my God, you're so thoughtful. Yes, can you?
Yeah.
And so just the little things like that. I've built a lot of good friendships just through what your parents what our parents taught us, right? Hey,
Yeah.
be courteous, be nice, and think of others. And
That's
just
right.
those little things will
Yep.
get you a long way. I always tell people that train with us, I was like, look, there's 3 keys to being a good videographer. There's the customer service side. There's definitely the procedural side that you have to learn.
Right.
And then there's the technology, the equipment.
Right.
You master all those 3, you're gonna have a good foundation.
And that's great. And I think that really speaks to the value that you do bring, right? That having a trained professional who knows how to operate in a depot room, to be a complement to the court reporter that understands the equipment, and just makes everything very fluid, right? You don't want there to be friction because of these sorts of issues. And I know we talk a lot about in person, but talk about Zoom, talk about online, because a lot of times now clients will say, well, you can just record it from Zoom, so why do we need to have an actual videographer in part of these remote proceedings?
Yeah, when the business just came to a complete stop, because of the pandemic.
Right.
I think before that there was video conferencing.
Right. Nobody really used that
No one really
stuff.
used
Yeah.
it. It was so expensive.
Right.
I think it was $250 an hour.
Yeah.
Between both sides,
It was
the far
very
end and the
cumbersome.
near end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zoom came along and due to the pandemic primarily, right, for what we know now. But the way we thought about it is like, how can we adapt to, because this is where it's going.
Right, of course. Yeah.
This is where it's shifting to because of the pandemic. And one of the things that we thought is like, we need to mimic what we do in person, and we need to make sure that happens even though we're on Zoom. So a lot of people early on thought that maybe a single laptop recording to locally on Zoom or recording to the cloud, that was sufficient. And maybe 70% of the time it worked. But on our end, we said, no, we need to develop the same procedural training that we have for the remote depots as we do for in-person. So the beauty was that we had mastered in person. We just needed to bring that to the Zoom world.
Yeah.
What did that mean? Dual monitors on a computer. Make sure that the date and time was recorded on the recording that came out of the remote proceeding. 2 laptops, right? A master and a backup, right? So if you lost one laptop, gave you the blue screen of death,
Right.
You had the other one going,
Yep.
and you can keep the proceeding going without telling, sorry, I got disconnected, everyone. Can
Right.
we go off the record, right? So
Right.
having a master and a backup type approach. So the equipment side was a little bit of trial and error. It was something
it
new to
right.
everybody.
Sure.
And it kind of developed over the first 3-4 months of the pandemic, and then just throughout time, it continued to be perfected. Because early on, we were dealing with so many video conference softwares. Like
Right.
even some that you're like, oh, I remember that one, like Blue Jeans.
I forgot about Blue Jeans.
Remember
Yeah,
Blue
yeah,
Jeans?
yeah, yeah.
We did WebEx, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams.
Right.
These were not as user-friendly as
Right.
Zoom was.
Right.
But attorneys, maybe we were doing a case where the law firm was supposed to do that, or if we did a lot of the Google cases,
Right.
they wouldn't use anything but the Google chat
or yeah.
Google Meets,
Right.
right? So we had to learn on the fly sometimes,
Right.
and adapt to what was needed to be able to record. So there was a lot of learning during the pandemic to do the remote depots, and
Yeah.
I think 6 months later, it was just every few months we had to learn something new.
Right.
Like nowadays, when some of these recordings were going to trial, the attorneys and because of the judge say, hey, this recording has the exhibits and the witness. So this is not, it needs to be only the witness. The jury's not allowed to see this exhibit.
Oh, I see.
So we
Wow,
ran
yeah.
into a lot of recordings
Yeah.
that did not have a witness only side. So we developed a protocol where, we record the side-by-side view, but what if when it goes to trial, they're not going to allow that side-by-side view. And so we developed a strategy to say, look, on the backup recording, we're going to do a witness-only recording. So even if the clients shared the screen,
Right.
the recording did not reflect
It didn't reflect that. Again, that's one of those things that anybody who's like, well, I'll just record it myself. There's all these variables that come into play that could torpedo their case or make it more difficult to use what they're recording at trial.
Yeah, and going back to working with the reporter, as soon as we logged in, here's my email, here's my mobile number, if we get disconnected or if you get disconnected, I'll make sure I let the group know.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That we need to go off the record. Or if you see me disconnected, and yeah, sometimes internet outages or
Sure.
storm or something, and
Right.
because these reporters kind of were in different places. And so it would be very, very useful to kind of just, again, work as a team.
Yeah.
And anticipate if something goes wrong, not reactively. If something went wrong, what do I
Right,
do?
right. What do we do now? You've already prepared. That's great. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping this episode up. This has been really fascinating. I've learned a lot. We work with videographers, but to get your perspective on this has been super helpful, and I hope the court reporters out there are appreciative of this as well, especially our clients, to understand that you guys play a really vital role in what we do and what their record is that they're getting. So as we wrap this up, do you have any pet peeves or maybe most chaotic moments or maybe a dream assignment that you've had or liked over the years?
Part of the role that I've played in the last solid 10 years has just been the handling of the international work.
Yeah.
And that's been my focus in developing and managing. The work that's on the state side, Victor is the one that drives a lot of that. I oversee a lot of the operations and help him in that. But part of the stuff that I kind of learned to love is the international work. So anytime that we have court reporters that are traveling, a lot of them have look out for myself or people on our team because we travel like a team.
Yeah.
Right. So in some of these instances, we've done depositions in some places. I think, I kind of calculated with the depots that I've done, and besides going to a depot in Antarctica, I've done a deposition in every continent.
Wow.
And so
That's cool.
Yeah, and I've been mugged in South Africa after a deposition, walking around,
Wow.
right, where my stuff was stolen.
No way.
I flew all the way to South Africa, 20-something hour flight for a 45-minute depo. So definitely this was prior to Zoom.
Right.
But that was the longest I've ever been on a plane. And then I was like, what do I do now? Like all this time. And I ended up going on a safari. Spur of the moment. I'm here. What do I do? Right.
Yeah.
So went on a safari in Kruger National Park. So flew from Cape Town to Johannesburg and then grabbed a car and drove out to.
That's cool, man.
Why? Because of depots. Right? And people are like, what? I've learned so much in depositions and just being there and being observing and being a sponge in the proceeding, right?
Yeah.
We're doing up in San Francisco, we're doing the Elon Musk case versus Sam Altman, right?
So wow, open AI. Yeah, that's a big case.
Big case, right?
Yeah.
And that I've done depositions of former presidents, A-list people in Hollywood, being close to here in Southern California. I've been to Singapore to take deposition of one of the former CEOs of Starbucks when we were there, and
wow.
With the permission of the attorney, he asked all of us, hey, you guys came all the way from the United States for this. I live here full time in Singapore now. I'd like to invite, no talking about depo, no nothing. He's like, but I want to invite you guys to dinner.
That's
and me
great.
and the court reporter were like, okay. And then the attorney was like, all right, I'm up for it. But he's like, there's no talking about the depo, right? No.
Yeah.
I just want to show you Singapore. So he picked us up in like a car. I've never seen so many lights inside of it, right?
Wow.
With his driver and everything. And we went to dinner, and I was like, man, I'm sitting here across the table having dinner, and this guy was the CEO of Starbucks at some point,
Wow.
a few years past. So definitely for depositions, this has been a great 20-something years.
Yeah.
And every little opportunity has come because I've never said no.
I love it.
And if you don't say no and you go, even if it's a 4 p.m. depo in Brawley, like Victor would say, nope, I already said yes to that client out in 4 p.m. in Brawley. That's the one I'm covering.
Nice.
Right? Because you keep your word and you respect the business and the relationships. It's taken us to this point. I can't wait to see where it takes us in the next 20 years.
I love it. Still have no idea where Brawley is, but folks, always a good idea. Say yes. Don't say no. If you want to get far in life, say yes. With that, where can people find Visual Discovery? How can they book a videographer? Tell us about that.
Calendar at vdidepot.com. And we have a 24/7 phone number that we routes to all of our mobile phones, right? So we've gotten those calls at 2 in the morning. But calendar@vdidepot.com, we're always available anywhere, anytime, literally. And especially now with remote, we've logged into last-minute depots where something happened to the original videographer, and though it's about to start at 6 p.m. and it's a witness that's in South Korea. We've logged in a moment's notice on Zoom.
Nice.
And we're there till 2, 3 in the morning recording a depot. So anywhere, anytime, it truly goes along. On our end, we take every opportunity and look forward to conquering the job.
I love it. Thanks for coming on the pod today, Robert. We really appreciate having you here, especially driving up from San Diego on a rainy Friday. It sounds like you've got a great business going down there with Visual Discovery. We like working with you, and I hope that you have many more years of success to come.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect with not only yourself, but all the great people in our industry, and I'm very, very thankful to be part of it.
All right, well, we'll see you again, folks, for another episode of Court Reporter Confidential. Look for us online. If you like this episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Thanks.